Curious, setting the scene. In northern Chile sits the Atacama Desert. It is one of the driest places on Earth. Some parts of this landscape are so deeply devoid of moisture and life that NASA uses the area to test its Mars rovers. But if you scan this desert from above, you will spot a massive geographic anomaly resting in the sand. There are literal mountains of clothing dumped across the dunes. Thousands of tons of shirts, pants, and jackets sitting entirely abandoned in a lifeless desert. This animated data visualization shows exactly how a landscape of trash like that gets created. Every single year, the global fashion industry produces up to 150 billion pieces of clothing. When you scale that math against the total human population, it equates to 14 brand new garments manufactured for every single person on Earth annually. Modern society has been conditioned to treat these garments as completely disposable. On average, a new piece of clothing is worn only 7 to 10 times before it gets thrown away. For decades, the fashion industry operated on two distinct seasons, summer and winter. That calendar broke in 1975 when Amancio Ortega opened the first Zara store in Spain. He condensed the standard 6-month design cycle down to 15 days, rolling out 52 rapid-fire micro-seasons a year to ensure customers always saw something new. Today, software has accelerated that model into ultra-fast fashion. Companies like Shein analyze millions of online searches and social media trends in real time, allowing their supply chains to pump out up to 10,000 new styles every single day. They pair this extreme volume with extremely low prices, which creates a highly effective psychological trap. Securing a heavily discounted item triggers a rush of dopamine in the human brain, utilizing the same reward pathways that drive gambling and drug addiction. Brands pour money into social media to exploit this further. They sponsor influencers to film haul videos, unboxing dozens of cheap garments at once. This constant barrage of content manufactures an intense fear of missing out, convincing viewers they need a new wardrobe every week to stay relevant. The low price on the tag is highly deceptive. The company still extracts a massive profit, but the true cost of making the item so cheap is simply pushed off the balance sheet and passed directly onto the Earth's ecosystems. This diagram shows the immense physical resources required to grow natural fibers. Producing the cotton for a single basic t-shirt requires 2,700 liters of water. That exact volume is enough to supply one person with drinking water for 2.5 years. When that math is applied to millions of garments, entire geographic regions collapse. Between Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, the Aral Sea was once the world's 4th largest lake, surrounded by green forests and fishing communities. Its water was systematically diverted to feed large-scale cotton farms, draining the lake completely and leaving behind a toxic desert where carcinogenic dust now blows into neighboring villages. In the factories where these fabrics are processed, the water absorbs synthetic dyes and toxic chemicals. Crores of liters of this waste are frequently discharged straight back into local rivers, smothering the water in chemical foam, destroying local agriculture and poisoning the groundwater. The atmosphere takes a similar hit. The massive industrial effort to harvest, manufacture, and transport these cheap garments produces roughly 10% of global carbon emissions. That is more carbon pollution than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. Before a fast fashion garment even reaches the store rack, its creation has already drained vital freshwater reserves, poisoned communities living near the factories, and measurably heated the planet. Even if you avoid cotton, the alternative carries its own heavy toll. Right now, 60% of all clothing produced is woven out of plastic. Materials listed on tags as polyester, nylon, and acrylic are all derived from fossil fuels. When you put these synthetic materials into a washing machine, the violent churning action creates immense friction. A single wash cycle can snap off up to 6 million microscopic plastic fibers directly from the fabric. These microplastics are typically less than 5 millimeters long, far too small for standard municipal water treatment plants to filter out. They bypass our infrastructure entirely, flowing out into rivers and oceans, where they now make up 35% of all oceanic microplastic pollution. Because they saturate the water and the food chain, these fast fashion plastics inevitably find their way into human biology. Scientists have routinely discovered these exact synthetic fibers embedded in human blood, liver tissue, and even the placentas of unborn babies. The impact of synthetic clothing is surprisingly intimate. As these fibers degrade distant oceans, the mechanical friction of laundry simultaneously pushes plastic polymers directly into our own biology. The speed at which society discards these garments outpaces any system designed to handle them. Globally, the equivalent weight of one full garbage truck of textile waste is simply dumped every single second. Much of this discarded clothing is exported from Western nations to developing countries under the guise of secondhand donations. In places like Accra, Ghana, the sheer volume of unwearable, low-quality waste arriving at the markets is overwhelming. It is so extreme that it forms literal cliffs of tangled fabric along the local beaches. Because the vast majority of these discarded shirts and pants are woven from synthetic polymers, they act like any other plastic bottle. They will sit in the sand entirely intact for hundreds of years before they begin to break down. When the piles become too large, the overflow is often set on fire. Burning these synthetic garments releases highly toxic, carcinogenic smoke directly into the lungs of the people living nearby. Fast fashion is, in reality, wearable plastic. There is no true end of life for these garments. Throwing them away simply relocates them, turning cheap seasonal trends into permanent, toxic fixtures on the surface of the earth. The urge to constantly buy new things is not a natural human instinct. It is a calculated business maneuver known as artificial obsolescence, a strategy formalized in the 1930s specifically to convince consumers that their perfectly functional goods were outdated and embarrassing to own. Fast fashion brands and social media algorithms work together to maintain this pressure. The idea that wearing the same outfit twice is a social failure is entirely manufactured by the people selling the clothes. Governments are beginning to recognize the damage. The European Union has recently banned clothing brands from deliberately destroying their own unsold inventory. They are also preparing to implement digital product passports, requiring every garment to carry a clear public record of where it was made and its exact environmental impact. Legislation can force companies to clean up their supply chains, but halting the physical destruction of the environment requires consumers to stop playing along with the psychological manipulation that drives the sales. You can bypass the fast fashion trap immediately by applying a simple psychological filter, the 30-wear test. Before making a purchase, ask yourself honestly if you will wear that specific item at least 30 times. If the answer is no, leave it on the rack. When you do buy, look closely at the tag. Prioritize natural, biodegradable materials like organic cotton, linen, and hemp. These materials regenerate the soil, require minimal water to grow, and won't shed plastic into the ocean when you wash them. And most importantly, maintain what you already own. A lost button or a loose seam is not the end of a garment's life. Wash clothes only when they are actually dirty, and take damaged items to a local tailor. Repairing the environmental damage of our wardrobes requires a behavioral shift. While sustainable labels help, the real solution is a total rejection of disposability, exchanging the habit of constant replacement for a renewed respect for the things we wear.